Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our first of probably quite a few of these online videos where we're going to be doing our U.S. history class in this format. I'll be posting one or two of these a week along with some exercises and an assessment at the end of the week. And however long we need to do this, we'll do this. Please make sure you're emailing me questions. That is vitally important. Email, text. I did put my text number up there. Whatever format you want to use it. Make sure you're checking in the classroom and make sure you're checking in with me. Okay. So, what I want to do is do this wrap up on progressivism. We hadn't quite finished that. And then we're going to move on to the World War I stuff and the imperialism stuff. All right. So, I want to talk about three progressive presidents. Roosevelt, which is the one that everybody thinks of. Taft, which is the one that everybody remembers for getting stuck in a bathtub. And Wilson, who everybody associates with World War I. But interestingly enough, all three of these guys have very different takes on progressivism. So let's go over them real quickly. Roosevelt. Roosevelt's the big show of progressivism. He loves to be out there, to be seen, to be associated with things that are happening. He is, don't get me wrong, he does some amazing things as president, but he's also a bit of an ego case. Roosevelt really struggles to figure out what progressivism looks like if he's not at the center of it. So that's very important. Conservation is very important to him. He is the one that starts the National Forest System, pushes to the National Park System, all that kind of thing, in the interests of conserving land so it doesn't get used up for later generations. That's why we have a national forest in Lincoln. Hugely important. He does some limited trust busting. He goes after what he considers to be bad trusts. J.P. Morgan, Northern Securities is considered to be one of those bad trusts. He gets a lot of press for going toe-to-toe with Morgan. But interestingly, he doesn't actually go after all that many. I think it's like 8. I'd have to check the number, but it's not a high number. And so this is, you can't really consider this truly central to his presidency other than being seen to be doing it and being one of the early trust busters. All right. He is a big user of the bully pulpit. He actually coins that term. The bully pulpit is basically this idea that I'm going to use my power as president to get in front of people's faces, to get in the paper, to get in the media, and to change opinions that way. He is a master of this. There's no two ways about it. Only human being I've ever heard of who gets shot in the chest, goes and makes a 2-hour speech, and then goes to the hospital. Guy is an absolutely nutso speaker. And then finally, the thing we should remember for, of course, is the Pure Food and Drug Acts. This was something that was sort of forced on him by people like Upton Sinclair and Ida Tarbell, writing about the problems in the meatpacking industry, the problems with the unregulated medicinals industry, and largely he's responsible for pushing this through Congress. Okay, so that's Roosevelt. Taft, excuse me. William Howard Taft gets a bit of a bad rap. Taft is remembered for being an enormous president. He's probably got about 100 pounds on me, and I'm not a skinny guy. But what we should remember him for is a fair bit of trust busting. He initiated way more antitrust lawsuits than Roosevelt. He viewed many more trusts as being a problem than Roosevelt did, so he was much more aggressive about that. That being said, progressivism to him revolves around trust busting. Everything else kind of went to the wayside. He halts the conservation movement. He actually fires the head of the Forest Service and replaces him with somebody a little less aggressive, a little less, out there. And Taft is sort of in that case, in the conservation movement, is a little bit of a wait and see, a breath in between movements. And conservation takes a little bit of a step back during Taft's period. Unfortunately for Taft, he is remembered as being the big fat guy who gets stuck in the bathtub. Roosevelt decides he wants back in on the presidency after 4 years and runs against Taft for the Republican nomination, splitting the vote. We talked about this, and it did not go well for either one of them. Taft won the nomination. Roosevelt starts a third party. They split the Republican vote between them, and Woodrow Wilson wins with a minority majority in the election of 1912. Now, Wilson is not often referred to as a progressive, but that's largely because he's associated with World War I. Interestingly enough, his first first go around, he ran on this idea of a new freedom, and his ideas were very, very progressive. First thing, he viewed basically all trusts as bad. Any trust of any size is bad. We need to get rid of them. He attacked more than either one of those guys. He also wanted to get rid of tariffs and abusive banks. Not that he wanted to eliminate banks, he understood the necessity of them, but he felt that a lot of the banks were very abusive, especially towards groups like farmers and that sort of thing, and that they needed to be reined in, and that tariffs needed to be gotten rid of. His argument is, look, say, for example, a roll of toilet paper, to pick something topical, brought in from England is going to have a nickel tariff put on it. Now, the rich guy buying that roll of toilet paper ain't ever going to notice the nickel tariff, but the poor person is, and that's going to be a serious problem. So he wanted to see tariffs, banks, and trusts all dealt with in his time in office. So that's just a quick summary of progressivism. Wilson sort of gets caught up in World War I, and his progressive ideals stop there. In fact, as you're going to find in the coming chapters, he's also responsible for some of the great abuses of the Constitution that happened in the 20th century. He becomes a little bit of a nut job in the end. But as a progressive, he's got some pretty strong credentials. All right, so make sure you are following along and doing what you got to do. Please, everybody, stay safe, stay healthy, and hopefully I will see you back here soon. Bye-bye.